Hi there. Um, I'm supposed to be live. What's going on? Okay, I think I am. Hi on Instagram. Hi Facebook. This is Nomna. Welcome to day 2 of the B101 Masterclass. This is the Zazi challenge. It's a 7-day challenge, and today we are in day 2 of the challenge. Apologies for those that have been waiting. I had to start a bit late whilst I was busy setting up my tech, but now thankfully everything is up and running. All right, so what is this BU 101 Masterclass? Well, if you've been my friend or if you've been following me for a long time, you'll probably know that I in 2019, I started this journey of wanting to start up Nomna Academy, wherein I'll be sharing a lot of knowledge um, on the socials and creating online courses, which is basically what I used to do in the corporate environment. But now I thought, okay, you know what? Let me extend this gift that God has given me to more than just the people that get to work with me in the workspace, but I just wanted to share some love. That's how Nomna Academy started. So I've been doing a lot of research. You may have completed some of the surveys that I've been sending out, requesting more information, wanting to get to know what are your biggest challenges, what do you need help with mostly. So out of those, the feedback that you shared with me, some of the elements have now become these programs. The first one, which I'm now launching officially, it's still free. I'm still giving those ones, my immediate family, a taste of this medicine. That's why we're having this study challenge, for me to test the content with you guys. I mean, it's Facebook, it's Instagram. You guys have been following me, you've been supporting my journey this far. So I felt like it's the perfect opportunity for me to get started. So, day 2, what are we talking about today? Today, yesterday we had day 1. In day 1, it was really just about the brief high level introductions about the BU 101. We spoke about being your authentic self, what authenticity means, and we shared a few tips about how you can boost your confidence in terms of being your authentic self. We spoke about a few do's and don'ts in terms of how you can be more authentic and the things that you should avoid in that journey of getting into your authentic self. Well, if you missed it and you want to catch up on it, of course, just go to my Instagram page and my Facebook account. I have linked the replays that you're more than welcome to watch anytime. I must warn you though that they will not always be there. At some point, I'm gonna take down the videos. However, for now, until the next foreseeable future, they will be there. You're more than welcome to go and rewatch whatever you have missed out on. All right. So today, day 2, what are we talking about? Just give me a minute so I can just get to my slides for day 2. All right, yeah, we are there. So today we're talking about, tell us about yourself, personal introductions. Tell us about yourself. Who are you? That is such a common question. We answer that question so often. Every time we meet people we don't know, every time we introduce ourselves in groups, every time you start a new job, every time you meet someone new, it happens so often that you need to tell people about yourself. The surprising thing is that as often as it happens in our lives, it's such a daunting question to ask because you never really know where to begin. But really, where do you begin? All right. So I'm gonna give you 1 minute right now, ne, to kind of like pretend you're introducing yourself to a stranger, right? Even if it's just you in the room and you're alone. Tell the person next to you about yourself. Or rather, tell me about yourself. Who are you? Okay, so in the meantime, let me just give you a brief highlight of how I introduce myself, who I am. I am Numisa Nomna Mbusi. You're welcome to call me Nomna. That is the name that I go by these days. And I am a mom. I'm a writer. I'm a design entrepreneur. Over and above that, I'm an adventure lover. And I'm a difference maker. And I'm a tree hugger. Of course, those are just some of the aspects that I highlight in my introduction because they are mostly aligned to my values, they're mostly aligned to my passions, they're mostly aligned to my purpose, right? I will not go into detail of how I then proceed to introduce myself further. However, today that's what we are talking about. Tell us about yourself. How do you best introduce yourself in a concise manner wherein you are able to express yourself, all the key aspects about yourself that you want the next person to know without taking too much of their time? Of course, we know we are in the digital era where people have such a short attention span, you know, and people do not absorb much because there's so much noise that is surrounding us. So how do you make sure that you get heard in that introduction? So we'll talk about that today. And then we'll have a little activity where you'll be completing your own introduction statement. Hint, hint. I have prepared a few pointers for you to help you along that introduction, right? And then lastly, we'll talk about the tips to continuously improve on your introduction statement. All right, we have someone joining us in Instagram. Zofe, hi, it's nice to have you again today. You were here yesterday as well, and today you are here again. Thank you very much. Your presence is much appreciated. All right, so tell us about yourself, right? These days, you have to give a concise answer. It is mandatory. And that concise answer is not as easy unless you've given yourself time and space to be intentional about how you present yourself to the world. Which is why you're probably watching this masterclass right now, to be intentional about who you are authentically presenting to the world and how you portray that authenticity to maximum effectiveness, right? Yes. So where do you begin? Well, I prepared 5 leading questions and guiding statements that can help you to focus on the key areas that you need to zoom into when you're introducing yourself. Okay, so what are some of the leading questions that ask yourself in order for you to get to a point where you can find clarity on how to best introduce yourself? This is the point in time wherein I would suggest that you grab a pen and paper, jot these down so that you can actually reflect on them a bit later, because you may not necessarily be able to have those answers in this session right now. However, if you jot them down, then when you have your own time, then you can start maybe writing down those answers to those leading questions. Question number 1: what are your core values? What do you value in your life? What are the things that you're not willing to compromise on that define how you live your life? For example, for me, some of my core values are openness and honesty, right? Um, I also value freedom. Um, I also value authenticity. That's why I'm even doing these programs. Authenticity is a key aspect for me, right? Another one is having that open heart, wherein I don't like making presumptions about people and circumstances. I always want to keep an open heart, wherein I don't prejudge situations. I give them a fair chance to actually present themselves as they are, and as a result, that I tend to appreciate unconditional love. Right, that is a value of mine, to have that open heart, right? And then the last one is adventure. It For me, life has to be adventurous. It has to be vibrant. It has to be spontaneous. Of course, I love routine and all that, but there needs to be some spontaneity in it. I love adventure. It needs to be fun. It needs to be livable. It needs to, and those are some of my values, right? Hence, when I was introducing myself earlier, those were some of the aspects that came forth. Another very important value for me is family, which is why when I talk about my introduction, being a mom is something that comes first, because I think, especially since I had more than one child, it became so evident that being a mom is something very important to me. So, okay, I've given you examples of my values. Now, what are your values? What are the non negotiables in your life that you feel, I cannot live without this, or I cannot compromise this? These are the principles. If something is against these values, is not aligned, then I am not part of it. Right? Okay. So, secondly, another leading question that can help you clarify how you can introduce yourself. What are your passions and interests? What are the things that get your blood boiling? What are the things that excite you? What are the things that take up your time, wherein you just lose track of time and you just get carried away and you just get transported into that world? Um, what are those passions? What are those interests? Do you include them in your introduction when you're introducing yourself? If you do, how do you do that? Right? Another leading question, the third one, is what are some of the major events in your life that have shaped who you are today? Please excuse me, I still have flu. Actually, I'm recovering from that. I'm getting better, but I'm still recovering. Okay, so what are some of the major events in your life that have shaped who you are today? Some of the events that happen in our lives, they actually change our life's trajectories. They define who we are or how we carry ourselves, or how we proceed with life. And so, what are some of those major events in your life that have shaped who you are today? Like, for example, for me, one of those events I mentioned earlier was when I became a mom, especially when I had more than one child. It being a mom became such a major event in my life that I could not just introduce myself without mentioning it anymore, because it was such a primary aspect of me, more than um, before I was when I was before I was a mom, and when I had one son, the aspect of being a mom was not as prominent, right, in my life, until when I had three children. And then all of a sudden I realized, this mom thing is a big thing in my life, and it started featuring in my introductions, right? So, what are some of those major events in your life that feature in your introduction, that could potentially feature in your introduction, that have shaped who you are today? All right. The fourth one being, what are your strengths and weaknesses? All right. So, Strengths, yes, of course, we love talking about strengths, right? But weaknesses, we sometimes shy away from including like weaknesses, talking about them because we're assuming that, you know what, if I talk about my weakness, then I'm putting myself down or I'm putting myself at risk that people may take me otherwise or receive adverse feedback and so forth. But the truth is, when you're determining, for example, how you come across to the world, you need to be very clear on your strengths, right? Because those are the things that make you stand out. Those are the things where you show up the best to the world, right? Because those are the areas where you are most empowered, right? And then the weaknesses, those are some of the areas where you find that if, for example, you have that weakness and it's something that you're not shy talking about it, right, or sharing, then you make those that you are cohabiting or you introducing yourself to, you make them feel a sense that human aspects of yourself. You know, we are not perfect. We are human beings, right? We don't do it all. We not know it all. Yes, we want to think we do, but the truth is we're not, right? And when we sometimes admit to our weaknesses, it's our saying that, look, I am human. I don't know everything. And the advantage in sharing that weakness is that you may find that in you sharing your weakness, the person that is sharing your weakness to actually happens to have a strength in that area. Meanwhile, all the areas that you have mentioned as your strengths are actually their weaknesses. So, by virtue of the two of you meeting, that means that there's a perfect balance of strength and weaknesses because your strengths and weaknesses they balance one another out, right? So, for you to actually get to understand what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are, usually I recommend people to do a SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for um, strength, weakness, opportunity, threats, right? You can just draw up a square and then four quadrants inside. One side you put your strengths, one side you put your weakness, the one you put opportunities that you have at your disposal that are in the external environment that you feel that you can tap into, and then the threats that are in the external environment that you feel that could actually threaten your well-being, right? So in drawing up or coming up with that SWOT, you are then able to have clarity in terms of your areas of growth and your areas of improvement. Ne? All right. So the last leading question I will share today is, what are your goals and aspirations for the future? Of course, you're living today, but what are you aiming for? Where are you going with your life? What is your direction? You know, what are you hoping to achieve? Um, So those aspects are important to include in your introduction because when you are including these five elements, you may not include a long list in each of the five elements, right? You may pick one or two in each of the five elements to include in your introduction. But do you see that it becomes concise enough to help people understand what you are about, what makes you tick, what has shaped who you've become today, what do you excel in, what do you suck at, and where you're going with your life. Is there anything missing? If there is, please drop a comment in the comment section there and tell me what else that you usually include in your introduction. All right, so one thing that I've not included here that is usually applicable to us as Africans, especially South Africans, um, um, the introduction by way of your clan name is something that is very important because it defines who are you, your lineage, who you are born of, the people that you carry with you when you show up, you know. I have not included that here because initially I thought we would cover both topics today. However, upon a consideration, I decided, no, man, I think that aspect about the clan name, we need to have a separate session for that. So we'll be tackling it tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be talking about your clan name, right? So then some of the guiding statements. You begin by introducing yourself and you give a brief overview of your background. You focus on the aspects of yourself that you are most proud of, that you feel they define you, right? You should not be afraid to share personal anecdotes or stories that illustrate who you are. You know, those anecdotes could be some of those aspects that we spoke about that have shaped who you've become, or any particular statement or quote perhaps that defines you in a nutshell, those aspects. You also want to consider how your experiences have shaped your worldview and perspective. You need to be authentic and you need to be true to yourself, and also think about your audience and what they may find interesting or relevant. The last guiding statement being the most important, because remember, the context in which you are introducing yourself will determine what really matters in that particular conversation at that particular time. Right? If you're introducing yourself in an interview and you are going there, you're being interviewed for an HR position, so your introduction needs to be relevant to the fact that you're applying for an HR position. And so how you present yourself is the aspects of yourself that you feel are suited for that particular position that you're applying for, because the audience that is sitting there listening to you, that's what they want to hear, right? It does not necessarily mean that you have to lie, because sometimes people do that. You just want the job so much that you just tell lies. No, you need not lie. However, based on the circumstance in which you'll be introducing yourself to, then you go back to those 5 leading questions that we spoke about earlier, and you look at these guiding statements to say, okay, fine, for this particular setup wherein I will be introducing myself, what is most relevant for me to talk about? All right. So then, activity time, right? So now is the time for you to go and complete your own introduction statement, right? So if you want a copy of this activity, please drop me your email address in my DM or inbox so that I can send you this presentation, and then you'll be able to complete the activity, and then you'll be able to complete your own introduction statement. We have guidelines that have been included where you can just fill in the missing words, and then you'll be able to complete your introduction statements. First things first, nothing beats being confident and being bold. You can write your introduction statement and it can have all the best words, but the delivery is the part that comes first, that determines whether people will listen and take note of what you say, right? Be confident and be bold. Remember, you only have one chance to actually introduce yourself. You only have one chance to actually dazzle, right? So make sure that you are confident and make sure that you are bold. All right. So when you're completing your introduction statement, start by stating your name. Hi, my name is Numisa Nomna. Before we move on from the part about the name, hi Pindile, welcome to BU 101 Masterclass. I'm so glad you finally managed to join in. Thank you very much for being here. We're talking about introduction statements. All right. So, hi, my name is, you insert your name, right? Whilst we are on the name aspect, did you know that the name that you carry is not accidental or incidental that you are called that name? So when you say it, you need to say it with confidence, and you need to say it boldly. You know, in the session that we'll be holding next week, not next week, I mean tomorrow, we'll dive deeper into your name when we're talking about the clan names and all that and all that. All right. So, second guideline, right? Provide a brief overview of your background and your relevant experience. You could say, for example, you insert the number of years of experience you insert the fields. I've worked in a variety of roles, including you list some of the roles that you've worked in, and then I've gained expertise in, you list the specific skills and areas of focus wherein you have gained the expertise, right? And then key, you need to share any notable achievements or accomplishments. For example, one of my most significant achievements was, then you insert that specific achievement. For example, one of my notable achievements at SAA was being named the face of SAA London. I am proud of, and then you insert whatever it is that you are proud of about yourself, with yourself, and your life, right? And now we are talking about those aspects about your strengths, right? And then you carry on and say, it has helped me to develop dash dash dash. You insert the skills or qualities that you have developed because of whatever it is that you are proud of and whatever it is that has been a significant achievement in your life. All right. So remember, I've said that if you do want a copy of this presentation that we're talking about, we started yesterday and today as well. If you want a copy of this, just drop me a mail in my DM or in my inbox if you're on Facebook with your email address, and then I will certainly email you the presentation. So next, you need to express your enthusiasm for the opportunity or the connection. I'm excited to learn more about this opportunity or to connect with you and your team. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me today. And then at this point, you need to now be ready for any questions. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you might have about me. If you want to explore more about me, please visit. You put in your website name, if you have any, or if you have a portfolio somewhere, if you have a social media platform where you want people to have more insights into yourself, then you put it in there, or you put in your email address if you want them to be able to contact you via email and so forth and so forth. So now, this is your introduction statement. And this is now the formal one, right? But now, if it's not a formal environment, it's not an interview, it's not a prospective client, you're just meeting a friend of a friend, right? How do you introduce yourself? I'm interested to know. I see that we have a few other people that have joined us on Instagram. Unati, Sisnombeko, welcome. I'm curious to know, how do you introduce yourself? Please drop your bestest introduction in the comment section below. I'd love to hear how everybody introduces themselves. I know for myself, it's something that I've been working on, I think, for 4 years now. Honestly, truth be told, like I have said several variations of the introduction. There's one when I'm introducing myself and I am introducing to peers, fellow entrepreneurs, potential clients, corporate people, and then there's also another set of introductions when I'm introducing myself back at home, when I'm introducing myself to my family, the extended family, and so forth and so forth. It may seem like such a trivial thing to spend so much time working on your introduction statement. But remember what we spoke about yesterday. These days, there is so much noise. There are so many people. The competition is rife, you know? So you need to make sure that you give yourself the best opportunity to shine at that first encounter, which is why it's important to work on that introduction statement. From my aspect, I know that sometimes all that really changes in my introduction statement is realizing that actually, when I use this word, when I say I succeed, I'm successful at, and then I discover, no, man, when I say I thrive, that sounds more punchy, you know? And then I'll go and actually change that to say, okay, I will not say I've been successful at this anymore. No, I will now use thrive, because thrive is more powerful, you know? And I must say, like, I am my own first hand, what do you call it? Proof. Currently, I'm in Cape Town, ne, on an assignment. People ask me, how did they find you? I mean, you're in Mount Fletcher. You know, how did they find you? And truth is, they found me on the internet. And how they did it, my introduction statement. That is what got them to me, honestly. And that is the truth. All right. So, and as we're about to wrap up, we'll be wrapping up soon. Remember to keep your introduction concise and focused on the most important aspects of your background and experience. That being said, good luck. Remember, you will work on that introduction statement for a long time. You will dream about it at night and then realize, no, man, I don't like it when I introduce myself this way. When you don't like it, change it. Make it what you feel is the best representation of you. All right. So, a few tips to improve on your introduction statement. We've already mentioned that it's a statement that you need to be improving on continuously. As you change, you improve, right? You are evolving. So does your introduction. There are a few ways where you can keep your introduction statement fresh and aligned to your authentic self, regardless of how often you evolve. Sometimes we evolve daily. You wake up this today feeling this way, thinking this way. Tomorrow you realize, you know what, I've changed my mind about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's okay. You know, you should not feel bad about it, especially if, let's say, sometimes it has been a period of deliberation where you were caught in the middle, you were not sure which way to go, and then eventually, out of the blue, you go to bed and you wake up the next morning and you have made up your mind. If you have made up your mind, make sure that you change that introduction to show your mind that now I have made up my mind, this is who I am, right? Some of those do's that you can do to improve your introduction statement: keep it punchy, use bullet keywords because they work best. They are easier to remember. If you have key bullet keywords that you use in your introduction, it will be easier to remember every time you need to introduce yourself. You need to make sure that you align your introduction to your values. We've mentioned at the beginning of the sessions that one of the foundational aspects about yourself are your values. So when you're introducing yourself, the first thing that needs to be reflected is your value system. Who are you? What matters to you in your life? You know? And then, thirdly, what you need to do, you need to remove what does not resonate with you anymore. Sometimes it's hard to do that. I know. Like, now that I think about it, I think it has taken me a very long time to actually remove the part about being a corporate organization development consultant from my introduction. I think it's only happened last week when it was official. Like, I had assigned a freelancer to do some work for me, and so part of the initial aspects, we're working on the website. So one of the initial aspects, he then started rewriting my introductions, and in that introduction, the way he introduced it, that aspect of myself was so prominent. And I looked at it and I said to myself, this is not me anymore. And I've made up my mind about that. So it was so sudden and instant for me to realize that actually I don't even want to identify myself as that person anymore, because I have evolved from being that organization development practitioner, consultant, and so forth. I don't want to be one. I do not intend to be one again, and I don't want it reflected anywhere. If we talk about the past, sure, you will find it in my past references, but when we talk about now, no, it doesn't feature. Sometimes it's not that easy, to be honest, to let go, because remember, this is an identity that you've carried for so long. Sometimes you've even gone and spent years studying, like in my case. I mean, I've studied organization development for so long. It's a 15-year long career, right? But when it's time to cut it because it does not resonate with you anymore, have no mercy, because that mercy will not take you where you're going. Caring what does not reflect where you are going, does not bring any mercy to you. Hi Z, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're almost done, but you are lucky enough you'll be catching the 3 don'ts that we'll be sharing. 3 things that should not do if you want to keep your introduction statement fresh and you want to make sure that you improve on it. Don't get stuck in the past. Like I was saying, like you were who you were then, right? And then you evolved, and so many things have happened. You have changed, and now it's time to reflect who you are today. The fact that you were that person in the past does not necessarily mean that you need to carry that identity with you throughout your life. No. At some point, you are allowed to put it down and take on a new one, right? The second don't is don't go into too much details. Like I said earlier, keep it punchy, bullet keywords that work best so that you can easily remember them. If you know that my introduction is made up of 5 keywords that are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, how you string them together in a sentence then depends on the context, right? But if you have those 5 keywords that you say, when I'm introducing myself, these are the things that matter that I want people to know about me, right? And then the extent of the detail then becomes part of the continuation of the conversation, right? You've now mentioned the 5 key things that matter to you, right? And then the person will then pick their area of interest to pick your brain, for example, and then the conversation continues. That's where you can now go into detail, right? But when you're introducing yourself, you want to keep it brief, short, punchy keywords. Lastly, don't be bland. Incorporate a lot of your personality. Sometimes we want to just be so compliant, right? That we lose that original charm that makes us us. If you're a funny person, build that humor into that introduction. The person that you're introducing yourself to, they need to feel that this is a humorous person. Like your personality needs to shine through. I, for example, am a writer, right? I'm a creative and I love playing around with words. So I tend to use rare words in my introduction. I tend to use rare words. They're not rare, they are there, but the way that I put them together, it's my own unique je ne sais quoi, because it's my thing, right? So what is your thing, right? What is your thing that you want to incorporate in your introduction, that reflects your personality? Make sure that that thing that makes you becomes the thing that brings your introduction to life. We don't want to be bland. Imagine, I can imagine like the monotony of um, a, a typical introduction that is just made up of SWOT analysis words without any personality. It doesn't say stand out. It doesn't say listen up. No, you need to have that thing that makes you you, that you will add, that will make people remember you, right? All right. So it's been real. It's been real. This is the end of the session. So to do a little recap on what we've spoken about today, we've spoken about the fact that it's very important to be able to give yourself time to design your introduction statement. Why? Because the tell us about yourself question, who are you question, comes up all the time, sometimes daily. Every time when you meet new people, every time you pursue opportunities, and it's important in this day and age wherein there is so much noise, you know, that when you want to stand out and take a notice of, right, you need to pay attention to how you introduce yourself. So we spoke about the 5 leading questions that you can ask yourself, those including questions like your core values, your passions and interests, some of the major events that have shaped your life and who you are today, your strengths and weaknesses, your goals and aspirations, those then being some of the key aspects that you will tap into when you're formulating your introduction statement. And then we spoke about some of the guiding statements that you can use, or how you can shape your phrases when you are introducing yourself. The key one that I want to touch into is the fact that you need to be authentic and true to yourself. Hence, in the last what we spoke about now, that you need to fuse that personality into it. We also spoke about, we had a tiny little activity that we had where you now had to complete your own introduction statement, and we spoke about the fact that before you even talk about that introduction statement, the delivery is the most important aspect, and delivery is about being confident, the delivery is about being bold, right? So all I ask from you today is that you give me feedback. What stood out for you in this session today about this content that we've just gone through about introducing yourself? Secondly, how do you currently introduce yourself right now? Is there a way that you think maybe you can improve on it? Is there an aspect of it maybe that is it still relevant in your life now, right? And lastly, if you want to have a copy of this presentation that I've prepared, that I'm going through as we are having this masterclass, please DM me your email address. If you're on Facebook, inbox me your email address, and then I will certainly send you the presentation. All right, be the best version of yourself. Make yourself proud and live your life on your terms. Now is there's never been a better time in history where people could actually live their best lives honestly. Now is the time. Live your best life. And it starts with being real, being authentic, and not being shy of being different. The time of being shy for being different is over. Right now, the world needs that uniqueness. All of those things that make you you and only you exist in this planet, that's what the world needs right now. So go ahead, be bold, and may you sparkle. Tomorrow, 6 o'clock, we will have day 3 Day 3, we'll be talking about clan names. Isiduko. We're talking about being you. We're talking about authenticity, and we are Africans, and we have a lineage. We have a long list of people that have been before us that we carry DNAs of, and how does that relate then to your life? That's what we're talking about tomorrow. Catch you tomorrow, same time, same place, 6 p.m. Yeah. Bye.